Greetings tankers and commanders, I'm Eekeebo, the video content manager for World of Tanks Europe, and today we're going to try a very new video format and series called Get Into Grips With, where I'm going to try and help break down large patch notes, large updates, try and give you some common sense, some updates, some justifications and reasonings behind why we're doing these things. Hopefully helping out those new players or those who maybe haven't been up to date for a long while. Today's video is actually going to go through a huge update called New Balance. It's essentially all those previous sandbox iterations we've had all put together. New experience for a lot of new players. We're going to test it out, get your feedback, tweak it if we need to. And yeah, so this is going to be going through New Balance changes patch notes. Before we get to anything of it, you are going to be able to get some World of Tanks premium account. You are going to be able to get a special client that comes with this, and you're going to finally get to see some of those changes that we've been promising every time we say coming later this year, coming next year, coming soon. Soon is the famous word using in a lot of things. So as you can see here so far, those are the categories of changes. There's quite an extensive list of notes to be coming. The first change that we're going to talk about is actually the shell changes. This is going to be the thing that we're talking about before with those special shells, what were once called gold rounds or premium rounds. The biggest change is going to come to those, and then a change that's also going to happen to high explosive shells. The idea is that we want to make it so shells are situationally dependent rather than what we currently have, which is normal rounds, special rounds, which are just 90% or more, better. And then you've got HE rounds, which can be meme worthy, but also have a specific type of role. The idea is we want to change this in that, so I'll list off this. The idea we want to change it, that is standard shells are best used when you are sure you'll actually penetrate and you'll do the maximum amount of damage per shot. Special rounds will have a new role, which is where you will have a higher chance of penetrating, but it will be at the cost of damage. And then before we go anymore, and then the high explosive shells are going to be used when you can reset base capture points and when you want to damage external modules like tracks, not internal modules, as well as it's impossible to flick damage with other types of shells. So the idea is that you can't penetrate with HE shells anymore, you will only do damage externally, and you can only do damage to external modules. Vastly different from before, and I know many people will say, oh, but what about, there are instances. We'll go through that later when we talk about HE shell mechanic changes specifically, but first, the special shells. The idea is that you choose this shell when you don't think you'll penetrate, but you still need to do damage. And if you're going to come across a medium or a light tank, instead of just relying on the special shells, you want to be switching to those AP shells. Yes, I know many people will say special shells are just default because I always want to penetrate anyway. But if you want to focus on DPM, for instance, then you want to be going with the standard shells. So we'll see how that goes. Again, feedback's important. The idea is that you just don't hold down the 2 key to win the game anymore. We'll see how that happens. Feedback, again, we've got from there. One of the changes, that, as I mentioned, to HE shells is that we want to normalize how they behave. So the idea is that these shells become more effective on calibers less than 120 millimeters, and lost effectiveness on calibers above 150 millimeters. It's also important that these mechanics of causing explosive damage have been improved, making it more predictable for both the vehicles doing the firing and those receiving. The idea is we have less uber low rolls and uber high rolls, trying to normalize where that damage is distributed. So hopefully you get less 50 hit point damage rolls, you end up with less uber high rolls of 1k plus damage. You end up with a more averaged out. A lot of people will say that, oh, but what about other tanks? What about specific instances? I can tell you there will be one exception, which is the KV2 and the KV2R. These vehicles will still retain their ability to penetrate with HE rounds. Other vehicles, like the Sherman with the 105mm cannon, I know a lot of people say, oh, but what about this tank is going to be ruined? Please remember that a lot of the times the damage you do with this vehicle is not through penetrating hits. It's still through external damage, which will still stay the same. HES shells will also not have the penetration mechanic anymore and will rely on external damage. So you'll still get those fairly chunky rolls, but you'll no longer get those uber high rolls. Now, again, feedback's important. It doesn't mean that we can't change it later down the line if feedback necessitates it, but we kind of need the feedback first to see how these perform and do these vehicles need tweaking. For instance, it might be that the Hesh round no longer penetrates, but there's nothing to say further down the line. It can't look at, okay, so the damage values of the Hesh round then need improving, because you now know you're no longer, you're not going to penetrate and hit for 2k damage anyway. Of course, we can't talk about one of the other classes when we mention HE shell changes. These HE shell changes will also roll over to artillery, with also another shell change. And the idea is that artillery should hopefully roll out into a more situational, and artillery players will also have considerations on the ammunition that they choose. The idea is to make it more diverse gameplay, and I know as well one of these shells that is going to change, as you can see on there. Some people are already reading it. The idea is to decrease the total amount of stun that's been dealt in games. So you're going to still have your standard high explosive rounds. These are still going to be able to stun the enemy and remain unchanged in terms of damage. Special high explosive rounds, though, will have that higher amount of damage and higher amount of radius, but they will not stun. This will be good news for a lot of people. So currently you have, of course, high radius, high damage, and still have the stun. That will change. And then you will have the armor piercing or cumulative shells. And the idea of these is that they're going to be more predictable. They're going to have low damage. We're going to explain more why this is going to be important in upcoming updates, with such as the crew changes and the equipment changes. But armor piercing is going to have a place and a feature in the game. Mechanically, it's just that right now, again, testing, seeing how these roll, see if they work. Do they do what we hope they do? Are they going to do what the community sees and approves of? Again, big changes. We're only halfway through there. Please give us the feedback. And so there's the artillery. So it's not a nerf. It's hopefully to try and change how it is that they play, and actually have a more engaging mechanic and gameplay for those players who play them, and less frustration for those being hit by them. We've also talked about, and it talks here, taking another step forward. Essentially what this is the hit points changes. The idea is that tier 1 to 6 will no longer have a really steep and punishing learning curve. With an increase of hit points to those vehicles, you will now be able to afford more mistakes without being punished as severely, and increasing the survivability of these. So far, the feedback shows this is well received and appreciated by a lot of players, especially new ones. And it kind of balances out with those shells that we're talking about. Now, it doesn't transfer over to higher tiers, but again, it can also depend on feedback that comes through, so please make sure you give on those. And then the big change that when we did our stream in December, a lot of people are asking about is, what about these tech tree changes? The 3 nations that have the biggest tech tree changes are going to be the USA, German, and USSR lines. The idea of this is to make the lines more linear. It's to make it simple, easier for newer players, less complex. Don't get confused and lost as you get starting into tier 3 and 4. And trying to make it more sensible in that kind of like the TDs and the mediums and the heavies, which are the most popular classes in the game. Those go in the middle of the lines. You don't have to worry about kind of getting confused into artillery halfway down. And then lights and artillery, which are the less played classes, go into the fringes of the tech tree, focusing people's attention on those. And there will also be easy navigation through premium vehicles, which will be situated separately from the researchable tanks. As you know right now, occasionally you'll see a premium vehicle smack bang in the middle of the tech tree, and for some people that can be a little bit confusing. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to have a GIF video when that finally arrives. Right now we don't, but that resource will be there. This simplification of branches is actually going to require a relocation of 92 vehicles, 92, from the tech tree. It's going to be from tiers 1 to 5. Those tanks that are removed are not removed from the game. They're going into something called the Collector's Vehicles tab. That means that if you already have these vehicles, they go there, they stay the same, you don't lose anything, you're good to go, they stay there, your favorite vehicles will always be there. New players, when they get to these, will actually still be able to get them once they hit tier 6. It's just that you will then have them in stock configuration and still be able to grind through them. It's just that they're not going to be cluttering that tech tree for everybody. The vehicles from tier 6 to 10 will not leave the game. You will still be able to get them in future, and we'll be able to get into all the details regarding this at a later date. So again, more information and details coming later down the line. If you have any of these vehicles in your garage, they will remain there. Moreover, they will go into the promotional category, and you will have the opportunity to get a tank in the top configuration even if you haven't researched a single module. So essentially, don't worry about losing anything. The main aim from all of this is you don't lose any progress, any time, experience, free experience, none of that. The idea is you don't lose anything. So I'm going to take a small break now, and I'm going to get the pictures of the new tech trees and show you how those look. So here we are as promised. Here's the USSR line. As you can see, far less complex around this period of time in the tech tree. And this is where you can see all those premium vehicles bunched at the bottom. I do apologize it's not in English, but this is a very early kind of video and sneak peek on there. A lot of these resources will come live to you in English once everything's ready. The hope is I can release this in time for the portal article and we can give you as much information and breakdown as possible, as best as possible. Here you can see those light tanks and the artillery being held on the fringes. Here are the light tanks with going into the tank destroyers, your heavies, and then your mediums. And then the other light tanks there. You can see it does start getting complex when you start getting here, but it is way simpler than it was before. And you can see there's not much in terms of changes to the mediums. You don't really lose anything here. I know that there is one tank that some people won't be sorry to see disappear, but as I said, it's not going to go from the game. It's still going to be available. It's still going to be there. It's just going to be not in the tech tree plastered right there. And that, of course, is the T62A from what I can see. I can't see it on there. Then we have the German tech tree, which is much tidier. This is way improved and much easier to navigate through than what we currently have, especially around this section where you end up going up, down, left, right, and then back again on where you just came from. Much easier to go through. Not much changed here on the higher tiers. It's all fairly simple and all good to go. And then, of course, the other major tech tree that received a quick tidy up and reorganization is the USA line. And again, you can see much simpler to go down, much more linear. You can see where you're going. Once you hit certain points, you've got a clear and easy choice: non-turreted or turreted. The French, pretty similar to what we have right now. It's a little bit easier to go through. We still have the duck that many people were afraid of, still there, still quacking strong. And then the UK line, again, doesn't look very different from before, still retains a lot of the transition and similarities previously. I do know there is a certain vehicle on there that is different than some people would expect. I can see my famous Firefly is vacant from the tech tree, but again, it will still be available in another area. And we have the Cavalier. And then we have the other tech trees, which don't really change that much. There isn't much to change. They're nowhere near as fleshed out and as complex as those first or the top 3 to 5 nations. So there you are with the tech trees and the changes and how they're going to look once these new balances hit. And you can see where those premium vehicles are allied. And so, yeah. So, with all of these changes, it of course is going to have some knock-on effects with other parts in the game. One of those is going to be your game statistics and your profile statistics. Taking that into account, we are going to have a parallel statistics tab going forward from these. And the idea is that your profile statistics are not going to get lost. They're not going to get changed. They're going to stay there. You're still going to have all your progress that you have so far. But you're going to see how you perform in those vehicles once the changes take place, or if they take place. And you can kind of see how it looks, how you're doing, how do you perform in the vehicles now compared to before, and so on. They will be updated. They will kind of go for certain periods of time that can be extended in the future or drawn back. So yeah, the hope is that you can still keep tracking going forward, but also don't lose what you have so far. The personal missions as well. Of course, those are going to need changing and adapting to all the new changes in the game, from the hit points, the way that the shells work and all this. Those will be changed and updated to reflect those as well. They will constantly be adapted. And there is a chance, though, that some missions will need to be suspended temporarily. I'm not sure exactly which ones right now. We will let you know as soon as those are there. But it might be that some of those missions just require more data than we have right now, than to be able to make them doable. Or at least reliably doable for a lot of people. So we will get back to you on that one. And then you've got the game economy. Now, the game economy, as you may know, the more damage you do, the more credits you make. This will change with the hit points and the shell changes. The idea is we don't want to make it so as people either earn uber amounts of credits or just start losing credits like crazy. The hope is that we can maintain the credit making potential, maybe a little bit higher than normal. We can tweak that going forward, but that does mean that the in-game economy is going to get adjusted to reflect the changes on the shells and the hit points as well as some of the vehicles. Um, what I didn't mention before is that with these changes, the idea is not just to like make hit pointless. It's to try and stabilize the power progression between each tier. So the idea now is you don't have a massive leap from such as tier 5 to tier 6 and then to tier 7. The hope is with these shell changes and these hit point changes is that you actually start being more reliable between those tiers. You don't have a massive power jump between those tiers. We're hoping to kind of make it more linear and less like this and more like this. So you will still improve and you still progress, but again, it won't be as steep or as much of a jump between some things. Feedback is going to be important to get that right, and we need to tweak that. So here is where you get rewards for giving that feedback and participating in the test. You will have some missions to do that will give you some premium time, some personal reserves, and some large consumables. So the 3 missions here so far are these, and then we have for the different tier brackets, and then for the final tier bracket. Just doing these missions will not be enough to get you your goodies. You will need to also complete a questionnaire, as it says right here, on February the 19th. Once you complete that questionnaire, you will then get your goodies if you've completed the missions. Now, I know that was quite a lot to go through. I do have a lot more notes to kind of make sure I haven't missed anything. So we've talked about where we have shells, we have artillery, power progression, I've just mentioned, tech tree changes, battle statistics, personal missions, the economy, and collectors' vehicles. So that's where I talked about those collectors' vehicles are going to go in their own separate way. We hope to make sure nobody loses anything. Please remember that we're going to make sure nobody loses out. Everything you've put into the game, you're going to get back, and the idea with the economy changes is that you also won't see drastic changes in your credit making potential on certain vehicles or vehicles in general. There will be some mechanic coming later down the line, which we will explain more on why the armor-piercing rounds will be important on artillery and why they may be a consideration. I can't go into too much detail right now, but please be aware that they will be coming. A lot of people will say that they're missing the crew changes, as well as the equipment changes we mentioned in the December article. They will be coming later this year. There will be an update coming for those. So the main summary of all of this is that we actually want to get a new type of gameplay experience to make it enjoyable for new players, but also to give older players and experienced players a new kind of gameplay feel and a more enjoyable gameplay feel. That's our main hope from this, guys. We really do hope that to get you to enjoy the game, have less frustrations with being one-shot derped or artillery with special rounds just stunning you consistently. We do listen to all your feedback. We do take into account, as you can see there, that's why we really want your feedback from this. It's going to be called the New Balance Change. The client is going to be there. You click on it, you join it, you download it, play it as much as you can, give as much feedback as you can. Please give the feedback once you've played it. Don't give feedback on something you haven't played or experienced. I understand the patch notes are extensive and numerous, but please make it so as that once you've tried it out, then give the feedback on there. We do take this into account. We will have some time to tweak it, and it's going to be important to know how you feel about these changes. There's going to be plenty. There's going to be a lot of videos, and a lot of content creators are going to create a lot of cool things out of this. This is just a really brief breakdown for those who may want to help digest this huge amount of text. I have 12 pages on another document over here. And so, yeah, please give feedback. Please join in the sandbox or New Balanced test. And please also join the streams and our content creators. Keep up to date with all of those things. Follow our YouTube and Twitch. And I will be going through some of those changes as and when they develop further. Once again, I can't say enough. Please follow the sandbox, and I will see you on the battlefield.